So you sit down to fire up some Crucible, loading up Trials of Osiris on the weekend, and you run into this team right here. What do you do? What if I showed you this? Well, that's what today is all about. How to deal with the Bubble Titan. After testing an insane amount of scenarios, finding out which ones work well, which ones fail, and then those 50-50 ones, I now have a list of legitimate solutions. Now, obviously something like Thunder Crash makes it pretty clear your super can help you with this, but we don't always have one of those in our pocket. So I'm going to show you all of the non-super methods to deal with them, and then we're going to blitz through every single super in the game to squash a few myths floating around. We'll get to that little clip in the intro in a minute, but to start out, I'm going to bust a myth around Peregrine Greaves. Regular subclasses will not work with these boots. They do glitch sometimes, but it's quite rare, and I think it has to do with latency, but under a controlled test, the Arc and Solar ones will fail you. The reason Void can work is because of the offensive bulwark aspect. When you have an overshield, that gives you a 20% damage bonus, which is easy to do from just popping your barricade, and it's enough to work every time. This technique is very easy because it's just an armor swap. All you got to do is remember that if the Titan inside has a barricade, you do not want to go through that with your shoulder charge. You got to find a way to go from the side, which can be difficult if they're pretty skilled and they're hanging inside their own barricade, and why I have a lot more options for you to use. And before we move on to the next one, if you are going to put these on to try and do this, just be careful if there's more than one of them, because you could hit the wrong person and not even kill the bubble, or even if you do hit the right person and the bubble goes away, you're still in a 1v2 probably, so you're likely to lose regardless. Now, number 2 is the 1-2 punch shotgun. This perk makes it so that if you hit all of your pellets in your shotgun shot, your melee will then deal 3 times more damage. A regular melee does 100, so that means it'll now do 300. Now, that pesky little Titan inside takes a lot to kill though. A bubble adds 425 HP to their health. Let's pretend they're running 6 resilience, which means 192 health at base. Add 425 to that and you get 617 total health. If they had 10 resil, I guess that would be 625. Using the craftable aggressive frame Ragnhild D, you'll deal 267 damage when you deal your 12 pellet shotgun shot. That'll proc that 300 damage from your melee, and if you add those up, that's 567. Not quite enough though, is it? Which is why you have 2 more options. Option number 1 is if you're a Void Titan, just pop your barricade to get offensive bulwark going, and that'll add 20% to that melee. Now you're going to deal 360 with that, bringing your total to 627, which is enough to kill any resilience. I mentioned 2 options because there's one way that they can block this. If they have already got a barricade popped in there, it'll give them that extra 45 health, right? Well, believe it or not, that stacks with the bubble. So if you see that, it just means that you have to use option 2, which is the 1-2 punch shoulder charge. I want you to remember that I said it multiplies your melee by 3, right? Well, a shoulder charge deals 150, not 100. So now that's 450 damage just from the melee. That basically crushes anything in your path. It doesn't matter what subclass you're on. Heck, it'll even work with a rapid or a lightweight frame. The main problem around this whole thing is actually just getting the 1-2 punch to proc, because Bungie nerfed the pellet spreads while you're in a slide, meaning it's harder to hit all 12 of those. This is why I highly recommend crafting an enhanced 1-2 punch Ragnhild D if you plan to use this, because that enhanced version lets you hit 10 or 11 pellets to still proc it. Number 3 is a weapon option you've probably seen on a lot of live streams, the Wither Horde. Because that pool has such a large radius of constant high-end damage, you can deal with bubbles pretty well actually. It's glitchy sometimes, or if you miss the middle of the bubble, they can technically sit on the edge and stay alive, but if you stick them, they're absolutely screwed because it'll deal even more damage, and it's a pretty safe bet to use this. It can even work against a full squad of them in there, but my main caution is that if they just start exiting and entering to keep getting that overshield, like they're probably just going to attack you and kill you, so you really need to make sure that you've got your team with you if you're going to use this as an option. Number 4 is the Behemoth Shiver Strike melee. When you hit someone, they get knocked back pretty far, enough to leave the bubble. You can double punch them if you want. Sometimes you'll get the kill. Often you won't though, because it's really quick and they're typically on their way out, but still within that edge of the bubble when it happens. You're better off not doing that and just using your primary afterwards. The main catch with this option is that if they time their own melee at the perfect moment when you hit them, they won't actually get knocked back. What I recommend is throwing up a barricade when you're getting ready to do this, and of course this is way easier on mouse, but I usually try and juke them, like I'll go off to the side and then Shiver Strike my way in, and what that does is it gets their brain to really focus on tracking me instead of remembering to perfectly time their melee. I've had a lot of success with it, but I do know it's trickier with the controller. Number 5 would be trying to freeze them. A reminder that double shurikens won't work anymore. You'd need to throw in a dodge with 2 shurikens, so really you just shouldn't try that. But Warlocks can at least try with their melee. The timing needs to be pretty solid because if you do it too early, it won't even work. If you do it too late and you're using that auto melee key binding, it won't actually freeze them. Of course, if you have those separate, then you're probably fine. And if you've nailed down the timing because you're used to playing Warlock on stasis, then you can freeze them, use your special, and just be ready because they'll unfreeze pretty quick. So they can still have a chance to kill you, but you should be fine. All right, we'll use number 6 to circle back to that opening clip. Basically, Well of Radiance will multiply your weapon's damage by 5. The Cerberus is kind of nuts when it comes to damage. Like, the thing sucks in my opinion at base, but all I'm saying is that if you happen to have someone playing well, remember that Cerberus uses primary ammo, so you and your whole team can just swap to this thing at any time within a match and you'll have full ammo. It shreds so fast, it literally takes 1 clip from your team to toast the entire bubble. Now, the final non-super method that technically works is using the Lord of Wolves. You know, I'm reading my script right now and I said don't sleep on this thing. I don't think anyone's sleeping on this anymore, are they? Watch how fast I destroy these titans. If you have 20 in your weapon, you're sitting pretty. I know you spawn in with 15 though, so you can still win with that if you just get a melee off after you're done kind of dumping those 15 fusion pellet burst thingies. What do you even want to call it? Either way, my point is that this thing absolutely crushes a titan. Like, take any other weapon in there and you will not have any amount of success compared to what you can do with the Lord of Wolves. The main thing is getting in and not getting one pumped by whoever's in there, right? Like, you got to be kind of smart about it. But okay, what about the supers? We're going to blitz through these like I said, and I'm going to rate them with the green check mark if they're worth using, a flat face for the ones that you kind of got to think twice about, and then a red X for please, dear Lord, do not waste your super. But first, if you've never tried AdvancedGG, it's a powder drink that I've been using for a couple of years now in place of coffee, and I'm officially partnered with the company. If you're ever interested in trying it out, it's the best one that I've had out of all of the companies I've tried in the past, and you can use code CASTLE for 10% off of your order. Up first is the Solar Titan. Top tree hammers are not enough to take the bubble out, and that's assuming you're doing it from cover too without them shooting back at you. Your best option is to get inside the bubble and fight them. If it's a team of 3 in there though, you will typically lose, so think twice depending on the player count. The bottom tree hammers are enough if you hit them all, but again, you're going to need some cover. If they step out to kill you, you're going to be kind of having a rough day. As for going inside right away, you have pretty similar odds to the top tree one. And then middle tree gets a little tricky. If it's one of them in there, you have a really decent chance. The heavy slam is definitely enough to kill the bubble from the outside, but remember, your animation is pretty slow and you got to be fairly close up too, so it's a lot easier for them to step out. What I would recommend is either use a barricade and start slamming to kind of curve it around the side of your barricade, or just go in there and start spinning right from the get-go, especially if it's just one of them in there. Don't feel confident though if there's a full squad in there. You will almost always lose if you try and challenge on the inside alone. You're better off just breaking from the outside while your teammates make sure you live. Onto Arc, the top tree heavy slam is really good for this. You might know that the higher you are, the more damage you're going to deal when you're hitting the ground, but honestly, you don't actually need to go that high at all. It'll just work with the aftershocks within the bubble. The bottom tree heavy slam is total cheeks though, like do not use it. When it comes to the light attack on either of those, it's okay. I'd say it's pretty risky. Don't be offended by this next statement, but basically if you're against a controller player and you spam it enough, it's really hard for them to keep track of you and you'll actually have a pretty good chance of winning. But if you feel like you're up against really good players, they can still win that battle. I would not try it up against a squad of 3. Middle tree, well, you saw that one. Thunder Clash is basically easy claps. If you're thinking of Ballistic Slam, you know, using Synthos or Dunes, do not try it. It will not work for you on middle tree. Moving on to Void, we have Sentinel, which I guess there's sort of like 2 options, right? You can go in and fight. You could throw your shield, spam your attack, and honestly, it's not that great. Like surprisingly worse than Arc's light attack. The second option though is going in with your barrier. You either do that with your team and you protect while they kind of fight the Titans, or you try and time your barrier with your left clicks in between to kind of fight them off if you're alone. Of course, if you're on bubble, you can just pop that sucker right on top and have yourself a good old fight against the wall of RNG that is matchmaking connection. Maybe a glaive would give you an edge, but you know the drill. Just remember, if they have a barricade in there, you're probably effed because you're likely going to nick it when you're trying to fight them. Finally, we have Behemoth, and it's a lot more solid than you guys think post-nerf. You can, of course, do that same Shiver Strike knockback thing that I showed you before, but alternatively, you can just make sure to slam into the bubble with your heavy attack. Sure, if there's a group of them and they're all using slugs, they could probably kill you on your way down, so you got to try and distract them, but essentially, the main thing that you want to do is just make sure that your heavy slam lands in the bubble so you get that initial freeze. From there, you can keep heavy slamming, or you can spam a bit of the left click and the heavy slam, but honestly, with all of the chaos, I find the most success when I just just keep right clicking and only left clicking if I need to leave and come back in the bubble. So what about Warlock? Let's start again with Solar. Top or bottom tree, you're not going to want to do this. Your swords will not break the bubble from the outside. Doesn't matter what tree you're on, like I said, do not challenge. To answer the Dawn Chorus question, no, it does not work. Do not even go inside to challenge, just move along. The middle tree though, that's the interesting one, right? If it's a 1v1, you can give her, you should win, but I highly recommend popping it on the edge of the outside of the bubble. That way you can kind of step in and out. And if they leave the bubble, you want to stay inside so you can shoot them when they come back in, but you've got to be close enough to that edge so you can keep kind of going back in and out. If they have no special, you're going to be totally fine. But don't put this into a group of them. If there's a team of 3, it's a no-go for your challenging. Just slap on the old Cerberus like I showed you and take it down from the outside. For Arc, if we look at the top tree, you're not going to be able to kill the bubble from the outside, okay? But you're going to be fine if you go on the inside. I'd say if it's a 1v1, you should have confidence going in there, but if it's a 1v2 or a 1v3, it's going to get a little dicey, and if there's a barricade in there, you got to make sure you don't accidentally go through it. Bottom tree with Landfall, though, is a beauty. If you pop it on top of the bubble, it won't actually burst it, but it will still deal a ton of damage to the person on the inside, so you can just easily go in there with the rest of your super and finish them off super quick. Alternatively, if you pop while you're entering, like with the momentum from the animation, it'll have a good chance at wiping an entire squad out. It's a super strong option. The only catch is that if you do try and get to them from far away, like you've popped it too early, just remember in all of these scenarios, if they're smart, they're going to step out and just completely dismantle you. So you got to be clever with your entries. Middle tree's Chaos Reach. I can't believe how many times I hear people say that this can break the bubble. That is not the case. It's probably because when people play Chaos Reach, they're wearing Geomags, I guess. So I'll just use this to clear that up. If you're wearing those, you're good. If you're not, you're wasting your time. The only way you're going to do it without those on is if you pop while you're sliding in, and then it's a bit of a latency game whether or not you die because it's 3v1 or you happen to get the kill quick enough. For Void, let's talk Catalysm and Vortex. Both of those bombs are great. The Vortex will net you the win from outside, easy peasy. Catalysm can too, just obviously a bit slower, and you need to be on your toes a little more, I guess, if they're kind of ready to attack you while it's on its way, but it's still fairly quick and you're going to be fine. Nova Warp is just no. I mean, I guess if there's a 1v1 and they don't have a barricade up, yeah, okay, give her. Shadebinder. That, on the other hand, can be solid. You have to time your freeze pretty good. If you're too late as you enter, they can kill you. If you're too early and you hit the wall of the bubble before you're going in, then obviously that's not going to work. But honestly, it's pretty easy to get the timing down. Freeze as soon as you get in there and you should be fine. Okay, last but not least, Hunter, 90% of the player base. Let's start with Solar. Top or bottom tree, it doesn't matter. You're going to need all 3 shots or all 6 of them to take out the bubble, and then you won't have anything left for the people inside. Like, they're going to be full health. Make sure you have your team with you if this is what you're going to do. Celestial Helmet has the same impact for both of those as well. It just combines all of them into one shot, and it'll net the same result. Bubble will be gone, but then the people inside will still be there. Middle tree Blade Barrage is tough. It won't break it from the outside. If you try and slide in, but you don't activate enough, they're just going to annihilate you. But again, if you time it perfectly so that your animation, you know, kind of pushes you in there with the momentum, it'll be enough to kill. But against a full team of 3, it's actually not that reliable still to get all of them down. If I see a bunch of barricades and people in there, I'm not going to use it. For the Arc Strider, the heavy tack is not the play. What you need to do is the light, heavy combo. It's always 3 strikes and it's very strong. It'll even kill all 3 of them unless there's like a ton of barricades in there, right? I just caution the inexperienced players because you have to get the timing and distance right. You can't have that 3rd strike hit too early or late. Middle tree has Whirlwind, right? And that one's kind of funny. I was actually pretty shocked how long I could live against 3 people. If it's a single person, like Giver, you're going to be fine. But if it's more than that, you're going to need your team with you because if they throw grenades on the ground, you'll actually die super quick. Now, the Void Hunter, not good. Spectral Blades will fail like 99% of the time. Don't even try it. Light or heavy, just don't. Both the Tri-Shot or the Long Shot tethers also kind of suck. They don't do anything on the outside other than, you know, I guess prevent the Titans from leaving. So I suppose you could pair that with like a Wither Horde. But then whatever you do, don't go inside and challenge. It just will not work. Like even if it's just one Titan, it's very easy to screw it up and just have it not work, especially if they have a barricade. So yeah, just be real cautious. If you're running Revenant, it's pretty funny. You can literally hit the bubble directly and then the thing will just float away. Similar to Tether, if you try and slide in and kind of time that animation momentum to carry you, it can work, but it's hit or miss. I would say it is not reliable against a decent player. I think that's a wrap. And for my Titans out there, since you know I main Titan, there is one way to guarantee blocking all of these attempts. But why would I share that?